Okay, Mary Shelley. Here we go with her. All right. So there's a picture of her. She lived from 1797 to 1851. And some background on her. Her parents were William Goodwin, so he was a radical writer, scholar, still studied, still well known. And Mary Wollstonecraft is her mother. She's considered the first feminist. Like, she wrote feminist literature. She wrote vindication of the rights of women. So she was ahead of her time. And because she was a feminist, she did not believe in the institution of marriage. So William and Mary didn't get married, but they had Mary, and 10 days after Mary was born, her mom died. So she was raised by her father. She had no formal education. She was homeschooled. He raised her and her siblings and her half-siblings and homeschooled all of them. She eloped with Percy Shelley, like I talked about when you learned about PB. She eloped with him at the age of 16 when he was still married, so that was kind of scandalous. And she took off, and her father was actually not really in favor of it. Her father was friends with Percy, and he was not happy that she took off, and they had no money, really. And they ran away and lived in Geneva by Lord Byron. PB died 8 years later in a boating accident, so they were married for 8 years. While they were married, she gave birth to 4 children in 5 years, and 3 of them died. So they had a lot of hardship. Like, she lost her husband, she lost 3 children. Her half-sister committed suicide when Lord Byron dumped her, and she went into a depression. So kind of a lot of negative, tough things happening for her. In 1818, she wrote Frankenstein, but didn't actually put her name on it until 1831. And the story of Frankenstein came from a dare. It was late night in Lord Byron's castle, a stormy night in July, and there were some different authors there. PB, Mary, Lord Byron were 3 of them, and there was a dare. Who can write the scariest story? And from that dare came Frankenstein, and also Dracula came from that dare. So 2 stories that we are familiar with today came from that evening. So how are we going to read this book? How are we going to read Frankenstein? When we're in school, this is probably one of the most fun units that we do in Advanced English Lit. So what we're going to do is kind of modify it a little bit. And like it says here, instead of reading like a chapter or 2 and then having a discussion and taking a quiz, we will do this differently. You will read and teach in small groups virtually. So each group, and I told you to be thinking about who you like to work with, will focus on one theme in order to assist class exploration. There are lots of themes in this novel. I'm going to have you focus on 4 of them, and they'll be assigned to different chapters. In addition to our reading groups, I'll have you be looking at some film clips because there have been so many of Frankenstein. And our goal this quarter, so what I typically do in the last quarter of this class is I really help you start practicing for college, where the burden of the discussion is carried by the students and not by the professor. So everything will not be fed through me. You'll be kind of creating your own questions. So some of the things that we'll do while we're reading, you're going to keep something called the Diary of a Madman. This will be a diary of your journey through the novel. So every week you will turn in a diary of a madman. What you have to have in this diary, and I'll give you an example to look at on Classroom, but you have to have a personal response about the novel. So what we read for that week, some type of personal response, not a summary, but a response. The ideas related in the novel or the ideas raised in class. So this response should be 1 page typed. 300 words is what I have set that as. You should be reflecting or reacting on ideas from the novel, not a specific analysis of the whole novel. So take a few different ideas and reflect on them. I want your honest opinion. Just make sure your response is clearly connected to the novel or to our classwork. You must have quotes in every one of these that you're kind of unpacking. The Diary of a Madman is due each Monday while we read the novel. So even if we aren't meeting virtually, the Diary of a Madman will be submitted on Google Classroom every Monday. So you always will have 7 days to do it. You will always turn it in on Mondays. Presentations. So you will be writing a Diary of a Madman. That's one facet of reading this book. And then you will be responsible yourself for teaching 2 chapters of the novel. So your group will do these 3 things. First of all, you're going to give a presentation that discusses the important aspects of your chapters: character, plot, themes. You'll do this in a recording and will submit the recording to me the day before your presentation is due, so I can put it on Classroom for other students to see. Second thing, you will provide a literary or artistic connection that will help illuminate the chapter or one aspect of the chapter. So maybe you're going to link in a video clip. Maybe you're going to link in a piece of artwork that you have created. Whatever you think ties into your chapters, that's what you can use. But there needs to be some type of visual. Now, for your presentations, do you have to be on the presentation? Like, do we need to see your face? No, that's up to you how you want to do it. But somehow you're going to be explaining to us, whether it's your voice or your face or Google Slides or however you decide to do it, you will be explaining the theme of your chapters to us. Number 3, answer questions from the class. So you will receive 2 points for every correct answer you can give to the questions that the class asks you. If anyone stumps you with an inferential question, so not something literal, but where inferences are necessary, that student asking you that question will get 10 points. And if they can stump you on a literal question, that student gets 5 points. I'll explain more of that kind of as we get into it. But the questions will be submitted electronically, so you guys will be writing questions to me for every group of chapters that we read. And some of them will be answered during a Zoom meeting. So let's say you presented today. In the Zoom meeting, I might say, go ahead, Joe, ask a question of the group that presented, and then you would have to be ready to answer live. What are some of the themes in this novel? So, all knowledge is sorrow. That's one of the themes. Lord Byron says that. Our never-ending quest for discovery, knowledge, science leads us to sorrow. Like the wedding guest, a sadder but wiser man who rose the morrow morn. So one of the things in this book that you will see, and I assign the themes to different chapters, it will be that knowledge is sorrow. The more we know, the less happy we are. The second theme is the creation, Pygmalion, God, Adam archetype. So I've got a quote there from Milton, like what is the responsibility of the creator to the created? What does the creator need to do as a responsible creator? Do they need to, mold their creation beyond that initial making, or what is the responsibility? The third theme, It Takes Two, Baby, by Donnie and Marie Osmond. What is the role of women in society, and what is the role of the feminine? So in this book, we look a lot at what is the role of the women in the book, what is the necessity of the females in the book, and then what is the role of the masculine in the book, and then what happens when that balance is lost. The fourth theme is the monster archetype, and the quote there is from Frankenstein. And it's not Frankenstein, I want you to know, is not the monster's name. Victor Frankenstein creates the monster. The monster is just the monster. Monsters can be seen as documents of our fears. So does Mary Shelley's monster show us what she and the Romantics feared? Were they afraid of science? Were they afraid of scientific discoveries? And is she showing us what they're afraid of? And how have our monsters changed? You would talk about this if this was your assigned theme. So this is just getting your toes wet with Mary Shelley. I've showed you the 4 themes. I've showed you the Diary of a Madman. I'll be getting you into groups and assigning chapters the next time that we are meeting. So these are just things for you to be thinking about, and I'll have an assignment sheet too on Google Classroom. Thank you.